Hello there. My name is Maddie, and this is True Summer Knits. And I am super excited for today's video because we are going to be talking about color seasons. If you can't tell by my name, I love them, and I'm a true summer, which we'll get into later. But basically, we are going to be breaking down the 12 different color seasons, as well as the 4 main color seasons. I use the 12 color season system, so that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to break them all down. I'm going to tell you how you can find your season, the qualities that make up the seasons, and once you know your season or you're close, I will talk about how you can utilize that in your knitting and your yarn choices. So let's get into it. Before we get started, I do just want to make a general disclaimer. I obviously can't guarantee that you'll find your season or that you'll come out of this video knowing for sure the colors that look best on you. This is just a guide. I'm just going to give you some tips. We're going to talk about what makes up the seasons, and hopefully you'll have a better idea at the end of this what will work for you. At the end of the day, it's just going to take some experimentation to figure out what is good and what works. So, anyway, let's get to it. First, we are going to break down the main 4 seasons. There are 12 seasons, but each season has 3 sub-seasons. So, the 2 cool seasons are summer and winter, and the 2 warm seasons are spring and autumn. We're going to start with the 2 cool seasons, and I'll tell you a little bit about those. So, first is summer. I'm a true summer, which is one of the sub-seasons of summer, and basically I describe it as the less intense version of winter, the less intense cool season. So obviously they are cool toned. Generally, they're more muted. They are softer. They are less contrasted than winters. We're going to talk all about what low and high contrast means. But if you're not high contrast and you're cool toned, you're some kind of summer. If you look at the summer color palette, you're going to see like more muted purples, greens, pinks, blues. The level of brightness or saturation is going to depend on the subseason, but that's kind of what you're going to see when you look at summers. Some generic qualities that a summer would have, like I said, it can depend, but generally low to medium contrast, which means like the difference in color between your face, skin, and hair when you're not wearing makeup. They will have like ashy, cool hair. It can be anywhere from like a blonde to a brown, but it's just going to have the ashy, cool undertones. And usually cool, somewhat muted eye colors. Now, the next cool season is winter. In my opinion, winters are the most obvious color season. And when I show you pictures, I feel like you'll kind of know what I mean. Some of the other ones can be a bit unclear. It can be harder to figure out which exact category you fall into. But if you're a winter, you probably know you're winter. And actually, when I started looking into color seasons, I thought maybe I was a winter because I do have dark hair and I'm like paler skin, but I'm still, even though I have higher contrast for a summer, I'm not as contrasted as a winter. So like I said, they're high contrast, which means they have a clear and distinct difference between their hair, skin, and eye colors. They have cool undertones, but they have generally more like clear and bright features than a summer. They usually have really clear eye colors, either very bright or intense eye colors, very dark hair. There is a debate on whether or not a naturally blonde person can be a winter. I think no. I'm not the be-all, end-all authority on that, but in my personal opinion, a naturally blonde person, even if they're platinum blonde, cannot be a winter. So if you're cool toned and you have high contrast, you're definitely some kind of winter. As for their color palette, it's generally very bright, saturated colors, like all colors of the rainbow. They have the most intense color palette for sure. Like I said again, level of brightness, saturation is going to depend on the subseason, but generally all winter palettes kind of follow that same theme of bright, intense, and clear, just like the qualities that make up a winter. So as for the 2 warm tone seasons, we have spring and autumn, and we'll start with spring. Now, springs are warm toned and low to medium contrast. So their warmness is going to overpower their brightness. They usually have blonde to maybe like a medium color hair with very warm tones. Their color palette just looks like exactly what you think it would look like. You know, it's very warm, happy, Eastery colors, and they're just very like light and bright pastel, those kind of colors. They usually have lighter eyes, and they are the only warm season that places an emphasis on brightness, and we'll talk more about what that means in a little bit. But if you are bright and warm primarily, then you are some kind of spring. And finally, autumn. So also the autumn palette looks like what you would expect it to look like. It's very stereotypically fall colors, like burnt oranges, browns, you know, warm purples and reds, those kind of thing. And they focus more on contrast than the springs do. So they're generally higher contrast, although they can still have lower contrast warm tones. Just want to think like warm earth tones. They often have deeper, richer hair colors, like intense red browns or like reddish blonde, but more intense. That's kind of what they have. They can also just have more muted browns, especially if they're a soft autumn, but that's kind of like the stereotype of what an autumn is. Now, all of that is just the basics of what the 4 seasons are, so you get an idea before we get into like the more specific details. But what we're going to talk about next is the qualities that determine what season and subseason you are. I'm going to tell you what they mean and how you can figure out where you fall in these 3 qualities. Ultimately, what is going to determine your season is 3 qualities. Those 3 qualities are hue, value, and chroma. What do those mean? Let's talk about it. The first one, hue, is pretty basic. It is basically, are you warm or are you cool? Now, you want to think of all 3 of these qualities not as like a yes or no kind of question, but more of a spectrum. Everyone is going to fall somewhere on this spectrum of cool to warm and the other 2 qualities that I'm going to talk about. And instead of thinking, am I just cool toned or am I just warm toned, you kind of want to decide where on that spectrum you fit. Obviously, one side is going to be as cool as you can get, and the other side is going to be as warm as you can get. If you are overwhelmingly cool, the coolest toned person you've ever seen, put yourself at one end of the spectrum. If you're slightly cool toned, maybe more neutral, put yourself in the middle, or maybe just slightly leaning more towards cool. Or if you're just slightly warm, slightly over the line of neutral. And if you're very warm, you can put yourself near the end. And all the qualities we talk about, think of it like that. Try to decide in your head where you would put yourself on this spectrum. And that's what's going to help you figure out your subseason. So a little more about hue. This is kind of the easiest one to figure out, obviously. If you can figure out if you're even slightly cool or slightly warm, you've already eliminated 6 of the 12 seasons. You probably have an idea already if you're cool or warm, but I'll still give you some tips on figuring it out. I'm cool toned, and the first main thing I hear people say when they're discussing how to figure out if you're cool or warm is to look at your veins. Let me see. Can you see mine? Kind of. You can see they're kind of bluish purple. It's clearer. It'll be clearer in real life if you look at your own in the sunlight. And generally, if you have bluish purpley veins, that's a hint that you're cool toned. And if you have like greenish veins, that means you're more warm toned. Another thing you can do is ask yourself, do you have a preference for whether or not you wear primarily silver or primarily gold? If you've always found that silver looks the best on you, it really brings out your features more, and gold really doesn't, or only like softer golds maybe do, or vice versa, gold brings out your features and harmonizes with you, and silver just kind of looks dull on you. That can be a hint, because if you mostly look good in silver, that means you're probably cool toned, and if you only look good in gold, that means you're probably warm toned. And the last thing I would ask yourself is, even if you don't know your best colors, you probably do know some colors and some makeup shades that you have always thought looked best on you. So I would kind of group those together in your head and look at your favorite colors to wear, look at the undertones of your favorite makeup to wear, and see if they lean more cool or more warm. And then just combine all three of those little tests in your head and try to see where you fall on that cool to warm spectrum. So that is hue. Now we're going to talk about the next quality, that is value. Now this one is also pretty simple. It's another spectrum, but this time one end of the spectrum is light and the other end of the spectrum is dark. Now, what do I mean by that? It's not your skin tone. It's partly what we kind of mean when we talk about your contrast level. Now, if you're light, it just means your features are more light. Maybe your hair is more light, your skin is more light, your eyes are more light. The value of the colors of you. Now, I'm going to give you a tip to figure this out. What you're going to do, you're going to stand in front of a window or natural lighting, take a picture of yourself with no makeup on, and then crop that picture on your phone to just be a picture of your hair and your face. Now what you're going to do, go to filters. Now put a black and white filter on it. Make sure it's not one of the ones that adds contrast or takes away contrast. Now look at that picture and ask yourself, how would you describe the contrast between your skin, eyes, and hair? If you're more towards the low end of the spectrum, of the value spectrum, your features are all going to lean more towards white. Like if you do that black and white photo, all of your features are going to lean more towards white if you're light, and all your features and hair might lean more towards dark if you're dark. So look at that black and white photo and just see if your features lean more towards white or if they lean more towards dark. Most people are going to be somewhere in the middle. So if your features just kind of like seem to be more light gray or dark gray, just note that on the spectrum where you would say you fall. Are your features very light? Are they very dark? Do you have a lot of contrast? Do you have less contrast? Just put yourself on that spectrum somewhere. It's your best guess. This exercise also helps you with the next quality, which is chroma. So chroma and value kind of go hand in hand to create what we mean when we talk about contrast. So chroma basically means soft and bright on the spectrum. So if you're soft, your features will, it doesn't matter if they're lean more towards white or more towards black. It just matters if your features all kind of blend together into one grayish color and there's not much contrast in your face. But high chroma, very bright colors that are very clear. A bright person would have very clear difference between their hair, skin, and eyes. When I have makeup on, I definitely appear more bright, but without makeup, I'm definitely more in the middle on both of those qualities. Along with the black and white photo exercise, another way you can figure out your chroma is just to take a look at, again, your favorite colors that you know look good on you, and just try to notice a pattern. Like, do they lean more dusty or soft, or do they lean more intense and bright, or are they somewhere in the middle, somewhere leaning slightly towards one side or slightly towards the other side? Again, for this last quality, just figure out where you sit on that spectrum. Give it your best guess. And the last thing I would try to consider, taking into consideration before we talk about all the subseasons, is if you've got different balls of yarn, or you've got some different fabrics, or even just clothes in your closet, again, go into natural light with some makeup, with no makeup on, and hold different colors up to your face and just try to see if you could figure out which colors look best on you. You can consider what colors look like good but really try to figure out the colors that look great on you. Even if you get 2 or 3, that's still a good hint to see what the pattern is with those colors. So try that, figure out where you sit in the 3 spectrums. Once you do that, you'll be able to move on to the next section, which is all the subseasons, and hopefully you'll be able to figure out which season you are. Now, if you have a good idea, if you know you're only cool toned or only warm toned, this video is chaptered, so you could just go straight to just the summer and winter sections if you're cool, or just the spring and autumn sections if you're warm. You don't have to watch all 4 seasons if you don't need to. You definitely can. I don't mind, but you don't have to. You can just skip to whichever season you think you might be, so you can learn more about their subseasons. But all right, let's get into the next section. All right, we're to the fun part of the video, in my opinion. So, the first season we're going to break down is the summers. And the first sub-season we're going to talk about is soft summer. So, you'll notice that each sub-season is going to have its own focus on the qualities. Usually there'll be a focus on 2 qualities that will be the kind of main thing that will make you that season or sub-season. And for soft summer, the 2 most important qualities for a soft summer are hue and chroma. Now for hue, since that's warm or cool, you're going to be cool. You're not going to be necessarily on the extreme side of either spectrum. You are just going to be at least leaning more towards cool. Now for chroma, you are going to be on the extreme side of the spectrum, and that is going to be on the soft side. Now, if you're just leaning more towards soft, then that doesn't mean you're a soft summer necessarily. To be a soft summer, you primarily have to be soft and cool. Those have to be your overwhelming features. So you wouldn't be particularly light or particularly dark. You'd be more neutral value, and you'd be overwhelmingly, or at least primarily, soft. So if when you were doing your exercises, you noted that your primary quality was soft and you are cool toned, you are likely to be a soft summer. The soft summer colors are, again, going to be those primary summer colors that are, those more muted blues, pinks, purples, greens. Just like the name suggests, they're going to lean more soft. By soft, we mean grayed out, muted. It's like if you took those basic summer colors and you added some gray to them to like gray them out. For this season, I would say the primary color for this season, in my opinion, is like a light, dusty gray lavender. The second summer season we are going to talk about is light summer. Now, the name might make you think that it's very similar to soft summer, but I think they're pretty different in my opinion. The primary qualities of a light summer are going to be their cool hue and their light value. So just like the soft summer, they are going to be on the extreme side of one of the spectrums, but it's going to be the value spectrum, and they're going to be overwhelmingly light. So in that grayscale picture of yourself, your features will almost all lean more towards white. Your features will just be very light. For their chroma, this is not very important for this subseason. Usually they'll just have medium chroma, not too soft, not too bright. So, if you're primarily light and you're cool toned, you are a light summer. In my opinion, the defining color of this season is like a very light baby blue. And finally, for the last summer season, we're going to talk about true summer, which is my color season. Anyway, so the primary quality of a true summer is going to be their cool hue. Obviously, the other summer seasons are also cool hue, but like I said, it's not going to be their primary feature. It's just going to be more neutral. But for the true summer season, they are overwhelmingly cool on the extreme side of the spectrum. That is going to be their primary feature. And as for their value in chroma, they are going to be neutral, maybe leaning a little bit towards one side or the other, but they're not going to be anywhere near the extreme sides of either one of those spectrums. I'm definitely more high contrast for a true summer. I feel like a lot of the true summers I've seen really are more like the neutrals, more on the neutral side of that spectrum. But like I said, they can lean a little bit more towards either side. So if you don't identify with the soft or light summer, you are cool toned, and you're not high contrast, I would look at the true summer season. Their colors also follow the theme of their qualities. So they are primarily cool, purples, pinks, greens, those kind of colors. They are medium saturation, I would say. They're not overly muted, but they're not going to be bright. They're going to be slightly muted, slightly soft, cool colors. I would say the defining color for true summer is like a cornflower blue, kind of like this top I'm wearing. So the second season we're going to talk about is going to be the winter seasons. So again, this is the other cool season. If you're cool and you have high contrast, you have to be some kind of winter. So let's talk about the different winter seasons. The first winter season we're going to talk about is going to be bright winter. Now, I will say, bright winter and true winter, to me, are very similar. There are differences, but I feel like if you are stuck personally between bright and true winter, you will probably be fine just kind of going with either or mixing and matching. I don't really think there's too much of a difference that it will really affect you if you pick one or the other. So, as the name suggests, the primary feature of a bright winter is their bright chroma. So again, they're going to have high contrast, but their features are going to be very bright and intense and clear, and they're going to be very cool. They are going to lean more towards the cool spectrum, but they are not going to be overwhelmingly cool to the point where their coolness overpowers their brightness, if that makes sense. They are the highest contrast of the winters, have just very bright, intense features, dark hair, clear, bright eyes, usually very light or just very clear skin, and they have the brightest and most intense colors of any color season. They can wear any color of the rainbow, and they're very intense, sometimes even neon colors. They are also the only season that can wear a true black or a true bright white. I'm not saying any other season can't wear those colors, but the only seasons that are going to have true black and true white are going to be the winter seasons. So with that, I would say their signature color probably is bright white or like an intense fire engine red. So next we have true winter, which again I said is pretty similar to bright winter, and they do look very similar, but the difference is, for one, they're overly cool. If you saw the summer segment, I talked about how the overwhelming feature of a true summer is their coolness, and that's the same here. But the difference between them and a true summer is they have high contrast, and although they might not be all the way over on the bright end of the chroma spectrum, they are going to be pretty far over there. It's just not going to quite overpower their coolness. They are going to have medium value. They can lean a little towards either side, but no winter is going to have truly light value, And if their overwhelming feature is that they have dark value, then they're going to be a deep winter instead. Their colors are similar to bright winter, but they're just going to be slightly less intense. They look really good in jewel tones. They look really good in like these clear blues, like intense magenta colors I think look really good on them. And I would say their signature color is going to be like a cobalt blue or an emerald green. And for the last winter season, we have deep winter. There's definitely a more distinct difference in this season than there are between true and bright winter. So again, they're going to have cool hue, but it's not going to necessarily be on the extreme side of the spectrum. They're just going to be cool, and they're going to have higher contrast. For their value, they're going to be on the extreme side of the spectrum, and they're going to be dark. They're going to have deep features, more shadows, just maybe like more contrast. They're gonna have deep eyes, deep hair, that kind of thing. I feel like for this season, their signature color is going to be like a deep burgundy red. And now we get to move on to the warm seasons. So, the first warm season we're going to talk about is spring. Spring is warm, but they lean usually brighter and lighter. So, if in your opinion you are primarily more bright or more light and you're warm toned, I would look at the spring seasons. The first spring season we're going to talk about is light spring. So, they are warm. But warm is not their primary color. Their primary feature is going to be their light value. So again, if when you did that grayscale photo, your features were primarily light and you're warm toned, then you are a light spring. They usually have medium or medium low chroma. It's not as important, but if you are warm toned and you're unsure if you are light or soft, then I would also look at soft autumn, because they're similar, but instead of their primary feature being their lightness, their primary feature is their softness. Their colors are usually just warm, medium saturated colors, but they are light, warm colors. I would say their signature color is like a robin egg blue. It's a really pretty season, in my opinion. For the next spring season, we have true spring. So the primary feature of a true spring is their warmness. Their chroma value is not going to matter as much, but they are usually going to have lighter or medium light value, and they're going to have medium to medium high brightness. But neither of those are going to be on either extreme, generally, of either spectrum. They have medium contrast usually, and their colors are, again, primarily warm, but they are not going to be overwhelmingly bright. I would say their signature color is going to be like a marigold yellow. So the last spring color season is bright spring. So again, they are warm, but they don't have to be extremely warm. They only have to be slightly warm. This is the only warm and bright season. So if you're warm toned and you're overwhelmingly bright, then you are a bright spring. Some of their colors can lean sort of autumny, but they're generally going to be brighter and lighter than any autumn colors. Their features are going to be bright and clear, and for this season, I would say their signature color would be like an intense coral color. And now we have arrived at the last season and the last warm season, autumn. So autumn is also warm, but autumn is going to focus more on value and hue and those combinations, because all three of the subseasons are going to lean more towards soft than bright. Speaking of soft, we will start with the first subseason of autumn, which is soft autumn. Soft autumns are warm, but primarily soft. They're going to be the softest of the autumn seasons. So if you are primarily soft and you are warm toned, then you are a soft autumn. Their features are going to be muted and grayed out, but warm. They're going to have lower contrast. Their features are all going to be kind of the same value, but their overall value is going to be more neutral. They can lean a little bit towards either side, but they're not going to be on either extreme usually. Their signature colors are kind of like muted, earthy beiges and browns, and I would really describe all of their colors as just muted earth tones. The next autumn subseason is true autumn. So similar to true spring, their overwhelming quality is going to be the fact that they are warm, but contrary to a true spring, they are also going to be a combination of a slightly more deep and slightly softer. So they're going to be warm, lean more towards the dark value, and also lean more towards the soft chroma spectrum, and also lean more towards the soft end of the chroma spectrum. They usually are going to have deeper, richer, warm complexions, and they are going to be lower contrast. They don't have to be all the way at low, just usually lower than high and a little lower than medium. This season is similar to deep autumn, but they are going to be softer and lighter than deep autumn. I would say their signature color is like a burnt orange. Now, we have finally reached our final autumn season, our final warm season, and our final overall season. So, the last autumn season is deep autumn. Again, I said this was similar to true autumn, but of course their primary feature is going to be their dark value. They're going to have deep, intense features. They're going to be more medium contrast, although still not high contrast. They're going to be a little brighter than they are soft, and in my opinion, their signature color would be like a deep, warm, reddish purple color. So, we made it to the end. Hopefully, after all of that, you at least have a better understanding of the qualities of the features you have and what colors harmonize better with your features. Again, can't guarantee that you'll know your season for sure, but hopefully now that you understand them a little better, you will have a better idea of what will look good on you. At the end of the day, you just gotta experiment. It's a personal journey. Play with different colors that you think match your features. See what you like best. Try colors you wouldn't normally try. And that is the best way you're going to get to figuring out what looks good on you. And I also want to say, just because maybe colors you like aren't in your season, doesn't mean you can't wear them. These are just colors that are going to harmonize best with your features. You might want to go for a certain look, and that's fine. That doesn't necessarily mean these colors are going to look bad on you. These are just the colors that harmonize best with your features. That is all. So I don't want you to think that because your favorite color is not in your season that you can't wear it anymore, and blame me. Please don't blame me for that. I'm happy with my season's colors, but if you aren't, throw it out the window and just wear what you like. You just, at the end of the day, you gotta dress in what makes you happy. If you have any specific questions about color seasons that I did not answer, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will answer to the best of my ability. But that is it for today's video. I will have my next podcast episode out probably next week. So thank you for watching, and if you liked it, subscribe, and hopefully I see you again next time. Bye.